Hi, this is Megan, and I'm going to convert a embroidery design into a long arm embroidery design. So first thing I've done is open up a new page in ProStitcher Designer, and I'm going to go ahead in my home page to open up a file. I have these designs that I've already purchased, and I've put them in a folder where I can easily access them from my open. So I'm going to use the sewing machine. In order to see these designs in my computer, I have actually had view, right-click view, and I've just done the large icons so that I can see what it is. If you just have it as list, what you can do is when you click on each one, it shows you a picture, and it has the size. So because I want to see the pictures, I've gone to the icons, and I'm going to go ahead and choose one of these sewing machines. I have all three. I think they're anywhere from $2.99 to $3.99 right now. So this one happens to be almost 6 by a little over 6. 12,000 stitches. I'm going to go ahead and hit open. So here's my design as it comes in. I'm going to go ahead and select all items. So now everything is highlighted. If for some reason you can't select all items, you can hold down your left mouse button and select everything, and it all comes up. So you want to make sure that it's either all items or both of them are highlighted. The next thing I'm going to do is it is higher than it is wide, and because of our throat space, I always want it to be rotated. So I'm going to rotate it minus 90 degrees. That puts it at minus means counterclockwise. So I've rotated it, so now it's standing up. Here's the other thing. This is crazy stupid. It's backwards. So I want to go ahead and mirror it and hit apply. So now it's in the correct, that's it. It's the right size now. It's the right, it looks like a sewing machine should look. Okay. Now, in order to resize it, first thing, let's go ahead and zoom in. I'm going to click my zoom tool, and I want to zoom in maybe right in here because this has single lines. So my grid is pretty, it's almost invisible. So right now I'm going to click from right this line where my arrow is. There's a faint line, and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 lines per quarter of an inch. And the reason I'm counting that is because it is important. Occasionally this regenerate stitches doesn't always play nice. So if weird things happen when you enlarge it, then try clicking and unclicking this when you regenerate or when you make it bigger. So usually around 200 to 300% works. If it's a dense design, 300% sometimes works better, but on occasion 300% is way too loose. So I'm going to go to 200%, and I've left the regenerate stitches on. So there's my design. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and click on the same area and check and see how many. Let's zoom in even more. And so right now I've got, in one square, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 per quarter of an inch, which means they're pretty small stitches. When I go in here to where it's a little denser, these are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because there's doubled up. So that's in a normal range. I wouldn't go any bigger than this unless you use a really thick thread. So I go ahead and I hit my space bar, and that put everything into perspective. So that looks pretty good. So now let's start to convert it. Also, any of these jump stitches, I want to make sure that they are dotted lines and not solid lines. So let's go ahead and zoom in that this right here is a dotted line, as is this one right here. Okay, if it's not a dotted line, then there's some weird things that you might have to delete some bits. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click off, and I'm going to click on the first one. And right now we've got two colors. We've got this blackish color and this bluish color for the thread. So this one only has two colors, so it's very, very easy. It's perfect for a first or second design to try. So I'm going to hit Save As, and I want to hit the selection only, and I want to create a new design. So I'm going to move up. So I've got in these, I have a file for embroidery for long arm, and I'm going to do a new one, file that says large sewing machine. So I've got a new file. Oops. I've already made it. So I'm just going to leave it in the new folder. And I'm going to hit color number 1. And that is the thread. Okay. A lot of times I just put in 1, but this one I'm going to hit thread, and it's selection only, and I'm going to click on which kind. So it's going to be an HQV, and I'm going to hit save. Click on the second color. That's the sewing machine. File, Save As, selection only, HQV, and I'm going to tell it which color. So on this one I'm going to hit number 2, because you always want to do them in order. So the color number 1 is always number 1, color number 2 is number 2. So number 2, machine, and HQV, and hit save. Then we're going to go ahead and do one more. I want to make sure it's highlighted. File, Save As. It's not the selection because we're going to do the whole thing. So we're going to go to HQV, and we're going to do whole machine. So now we've got everything saved. Okay, so now I'm going to go to Pro Stitcher. Let's go here, and I'm going to open up a design. Open up, and let's see, designs for embroidery. It was the new folder. So the whole machine. So I'm opening up the whole machine. There it is. It's 12 by 11. So it's a little bit bigger, and this is a good test to see how you and your machine work. And I'm going to then go ahead and open up a second design, which would be number 1, the thread. So now I have to place it. So we can see that the thread has a dotted line, and that the thread, and then this is our actual sewing thread, as well as a dotted line mixing in from here, and then this piece of thread and this piece of thread. So it is exactly the way it should be. So we're going to superimpose it, and I'm going to go ahead right down here. That's an easy way of doing it. And I just want to zoom in all the way. And yes, this looks all pointed and stuff, but that doesn't really matter. It's going to be fine. And I just want it to disappear. So it's superimposed really well. Let's go ahead and open up the machine. And so let's move up to here, and I can then move it down and superimpose it. The more intense the design and the more colors, the more challenging this gets. So I'm going to zoom out, and I'm using my scroll mouse on my simulator to do this. I would never do this on my actual Pro Stitcher tablet. That would not be joyful. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to hit my refresh. And so I've got the whole design. If I look at my workspace, I've got the whole machine, the thread, and the machine itself. let's go ahead and save the workspace. And I'm saving it in, oopsie, my embroidery designs, my new folder where I had it. And I'm going to save it as clear, and I'm going to save it as large to color sewing machine. Save. Let me hear it. Clear all? Okay, so now when I want to save it, I almost always close everything and then reopen it. I find it seems to have a better stitch out for the most part. It just seems to work better. So now when I look at it and I look at the whole machine, which is not what I would be sewing from, I would be sewing from one of these two, number 1 and number 2. This one is there just for placing purposes. The thread is there because that's the color you're going to use. It's going to stitch out, and then it will stop, and then you will change colors, and you will then click from the workspace to stitch the second one. Now, one of the things that I want to look at is how long it's going to take to stitch it. So right now it's 28,000 stitches. It's going to take about 25 minutes and 17 seconds. One more thing to look at is in the view, I want to turn off the design, and I've got jumps and start ends. So these are my jumps, and there is a couple of jumps in that. So you have to stop and physically move your machine. So that's okay. If I have the whole machine and I look at stitch stats, oops, I'm sorry. If I look at in the workspace, the thread will take 1 minute to stitch, and the machine will take 25 minutes, 24 minutes to stitch. Those are with the parameters I have set up with my machine. So my Opta stitch. This is very indicative of how it's going to stitch. So you might change your percentage way down and your acceleration down to about 15. Let's just click on that and say 15% for acceleration. And on my forte, I'm going to say 40%. I don't want it to go too fast. So then on the machine stitch out, it's going to take me 39 minutes to stitch out just this color. I could speed it up, but until you know how your machine works with you, don't speed it up. And I can then file, I can save this workspace, and I can pick out my jump drive and save it to my jump drive and bring it over to my machine. You don't need the whole file, but you do need the workspace when you go to your machine. There you go.